All right, today we're diving into a pretty fascinating scientific report. It's an analysis of a really unique piece of clothing called the Leela Quantum Jacket. We're going to break down what it claims to do, the science they used to test it, and the results they found.
Okay, let's just jump right in with this quote because this is where things get interesting. The report says the jacket works in part because of quantum energy injected into the material. I mean, that's a heck of a statement, right? It immediately makes you ask, what does that even mean?
So yeah, what exactly is this quantum-powered jacket? Before we can get to the test, we really need to understand what the product is supposed to be, at least according to the people who developed it. What's really interesting here is that the claims for this jacket are kind of split into two different worlds. On one hand, you have the stuff that makes physical sense. It's got silver fibers, so it blocks radiation and kills germs. But then you have this whole other side, the bioenergetic claims, which they say come from that injected quantum energy. So what's the enemy here? What was this jacket actually tested against? They didn't just want to see what it did in general, they wanted to know if it could fight back against some very specific things that limit our performance. The study calls them invisible stressors.
First on the list is hypoglycemia. Now, the way the report talks about it is a state where your body makes way too much insulin. And what that means is your cells can't grab the sugar they need for energy, which, as the report puts it, leads to a considerable restriction of physical performance. The second stressor they looked at is something called nitrosative stress. The study basically describes this as when your cells start making too much nitric oxide. This stuff can break down really fast and, you guessed it, it drags down your body's performance.
And the final one is oxidative stress. This is what happens when your body gets totally flooded with reactive oxygen compounds, which often happens when you're under a lot of, well, stress. So those are the three invisible enemies. For the rest of this explainer, we're going to zero in on that first one, hypoglycemia, to see how the whole experiment actually worked.
So here's the million-dollar question, right? How in the world do you measure this stuff? How do you put a number on the body's reaction to these stressors without it just being about how someone feels? Well, the study uses a really specific method called bioenergetic system analysis, or BESA for short.
And this right here is their measuring stick. This is the official BESA legend pulled straight from the report. It uses this color-coded scale to show different energetic states in the body. You really got to understand this scale to make sense of the results. Let's break this down to make it super simple. Think of it like a traffic light for your body's energy. If a reading is in the blue range, that means energy deficiency. White or green, that's the sweet spot. Everything is balanced and optimal. Yellow and red, though, that's a warning sign. It signals inflammation or that the system is overloaded. And then there's this last one, a pointer drop, which basically means total deregulation, total chaos.
All right, now that we know how they're measuring, let's get into the experiment itself. Like I said, we're going to focus on how the jacket squared off against that first stressor, hypoglycemia.
The experimental design was actually really straightforward. It's a classic before and after. They plan to take measurements of the person's bioenergetic state, then have them put on the jacket and measure again. The whole point was to answer one simple question. Could the jacket get rid of the negative effects of the stressor?
So first things first, they needed a starting point. They did a BESA measurement on the test subject in just normal lab conditions to get a baseline reading. Where is this person's energy at right now?
And the result of that first baseline test was kind of wild. 100%. Every single measurement they took fell into the blue or degenerative range. Now this is a huge deal. It means the test subject was already in a state of energy deficiency before they even introduced any stress.
So with that baseline established, it was time to introduce the stress. They used something the report calls a test ampule, which is basically a little vial with a substance in it that simulates the effect of hypoglycemia on the body's energy field. And then they measured again.
And whoa, the change was dramatic. You can see it right here on this chart. The person's energetic state shifted in a big way. 80% of the readings were still in that blue degenerative zone, but now a new and really critical 20% had jumped all the way into the red zone.
So what does this shift actually mean? Why is that little 20% slice of red so important? Let's dig into how the report itself interprets this data.
The researchers don't pull any punches. They flat out state that this change represents a significant deterioration of the person's energetic state. The stressor didn't just have an effect, it had a strong negative one. And to really hammer home how serious this is, they explain what those red readings mean. They represent total deregulation, A state so out of whack that, and I'm quoting here, the energy system needs a strong positive impulse from outside just to get back to normal.
And this sets up the ultimate cliffhanger, doesn't it? The stressor pushed this person's system into what the researchers are calling total deregulation. The whole reason for the study was to see if the jacket could be that strong positive impulse needed to fix it. The document we have lays out the problem perfectly, but it cuts off before it gives us the answer. So we're left wondering, could a piece of clothing actually fix a powerful biological stressor? Or did the chaos win? It's a really fascinating question at the edge of technology and biology.